The endings are the last thoughts that cross our minds when thinking about a game's story. It's the last note we leave off on before the credits roll. In some cases, there's a post-credit scene or a epilogue or something, but oftentimes those are lumped into what makes the ending, or can even just be viewed as something separate. But that almost goes without saying because, of course, it tends to be one of the last things you experience. Some endings are hype, some endings are heartwarming, some leave you pondering about what comes next, though most importantly, a ending should leave a impact. Something that either makes the consumer think or make them feel just something. Even if they don't know what it is, just something. That doesn't always make for a good ending or a great ending. Now, I do think that Kingdom Hearts Union Cross needs to have a amazing ending, and I don't have many concerns about the ending flopping in any capacity, considering the past few updates we had being just amazing. Almost perfection in my eyes. However, I thought a more interesting discussion to have, rather than will it have a great ending, will it be good or bad, is what a amazing ending exactly does for Union Cross. What it does for the legacy of this game as it transfers to a offline only app that you're only going to be experiencing through cutscenes in a theater mode like format. Maybe they'll remaster it one day or remake it, I'm sure, but for now, that's all the experience is going to be. No gameplay, no running around with friends in PvP or whatever, just cutscenes, just the raw story. Kingdom Hearts Union Cross has been praised in many regards by a lot of fans and garnered a lot of attention for the Kingdom Hearts series heading into the remixes and Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts Union Cross even has its own huge subsection of the community, I guess you can say, who got into the series through Union Cross, and there's plenty of people that have Union Cross in the story and its characters as their favorite video game, just ever. I've met multiple people like that. And then on the other end, you have some more traditional Kingdom Hearts fans, or even people who just have their own preferences to the console games, who aren't as fond of Union Cross, maybe a little bit more accepting of it nowadays, but generally just aren't fond of the mobile game format, and it does bog down the story for them. So you have two sides here who have both been coming together for the ending. And it's because regardless of what opinion you have on whether it's a mobile game, whether it's a good mobile game, whether the story's good, bad, we know that this story is going to affect all of the other titles going forward, and it being a, big prequel, the origin story for the Kingdom Hearts world as of right now, this affects everything. It's going to make us look at every Kingdom Hearts game very differently. And we know some of these characters are going to be coming into the future, which seems like the epilogue and the secret ending, and even some cutscenes in Remind hinting at these characters, or just, straight up telling us that these characters are going to be coming back in some way, shape, or form. But how do we get there? And that's what this ending is supposed to tell us. How do they get from point A to where they are now? Whether this ending is good or bad or generally perceived as so by the community will very likely make a huge difference in how Union Cross lore is spread out going further. Maybe if the reception of this game, this ending, is super duper positive, we will see the story remastered in the future. Maybe if it's not, it'll stay just a free mobile app and Square won't see it as worth the effort. We also have to think about how divisive this game was in general, because not many Kingdom Hearts fans are really used to the mobile game format or even play it at all. So a lot of people kept up with this game via translation, since the global version for the majority of its lifespan was incredibly behind. The Keyblade War event as we know it now, which was exclusive story to Japan for years in the first iteration of Union Cross of Unchained Key and Key Browser, didn't come to global, didn't come to the mobile app until a year ago. So the pacing, the distribution of the story is far from great, far from perfect. But all that gets moved to the side, the distribution, how it was paced in terms of them releasing updates and so on, won't even be a discussion anymore once the ending is done and it has come out. Because no longer will we be waiting for updates, no longer will we be waiting for translations or waiting for the next announcement on when the next update's going to come out or just whatever. Now we're going to look at Union Cross after as just Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, full story intact. So the ending will give people an opportunity to look at Union Cross for what it is. People will likely be a lot more accepting of Union Cross in the future, rather than being super combative towards this type of story in Kingdom Hearts existing. And I was part of it too. I definitely had a rocky history with Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. I always played the mobile game every now and then, especially early on when it came out, but slowly I drifted away from it as Kingdom Hearts 3 and 2.8 started getting hyped up with news and the games came out, and I started playing those a lot more because that's my preference when it comes to Kingdom Hearts titles. But I always came back for the next Union Cross update and would actively anticipate in some instances. There were moments where I would critique some things happening. Like I remember when Laurium and Ventus first came into play, that was a pretty divisive decision to make Ventus a character from even farther back in the past than we had imagined, or someone like Laurium or Marluxia now being a Union leader, who we now know is a huge plot point in Union Cross as he has a sister, and Elrena's also here too, who was formerly known as Larxene, or will be known as Larxene in the future, rather I should say. But basically all these characters who we knew in the modern Cage timeline being involved in this story, turning out to be 100+ years old. It was hard for some people to accept, because for 10-15 years, we knew these characters as one thing, but now their entire story is different from what we thought it was, which I don't think is a bad thing. At the time, I was kind of like, iffy about it, but I'm overall genuinely happy with those decisions and think they make some of these characters immensely more interesting than they were before. And that is just something that time does to situations like that. When you're looking at things in the moment, it can be very easy to just be reactionary and say, oh, I don't like this, oh, I hate that. And sometimes you really don't like those things, and they really do bog down the game for some people. But for others, occasionally, time can lead them to accepting more things or looking at things in a cooler light, more calm light, and you realize that this is something you never really knew you wanted and would make some characters a lot more interesting, even when you go back and visit future games you've already played in the timeline. And you see some of these characters and now you're thinking in the back of your head like, I wonder how this character got from there to here. And then it creates a discussion, which leads to you talking about these things among friends or family members or just whoever you talk about Kingdom Hearts to, probably people on social media. And it's really cool, and it's part of what makes the community just so fun to be a part of. It's hard to put a word on what I think Union Cross's ending will end up being and what sort of legacy it will leave. Will Union Cross have a super heartwarming ending like Kingdom Hearts 2's or parts of Kingdom Hearts 3's? We'll have an ending that's a lot more sad and tragic, like kind of Kingdom Hearts 1's or Days? Or will it have something that is gonna leave you pondering, like the ending to the secret episode of Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, or something like Dream Drop Distance? Knowing Kingdom Hearts, I feel like that's a little bit more likely given the current state of Union Cross. But it's going to be really interesting to see. I'm not expecting either one of these things necessarily, but I'm just excited to see what happens next, and I just hope it's great.